The year 2023 has been the year of action films, especially in Indian cinema. We had so many of them. So I thought let's make a list of the best action films of the year. But it was not that simple. Let's find out. Hello guys, I'm Nona Prince, and it's not really possible to do a direct comparison between all these action films because they all are very different. Some are over the top, some are stylized, some are really grounded and gritty, and everyone have their own preference. So to make this objective, I came up with 3 criterias and I rated each film in all of these categories out of 10. So the film with the highest combined total becomes the number 1, and I ranked them in the descending order of their rating. So what are these 3 criterias? Number 1 is action, of course, and this includes how the action was designed, the choreography, the camera work or cinematography, editing, sound design, and how the music is used. And the second one is story, which includes how the action is utilized in the narrative. Is the flow of it organic? Is the action justified? All of that. And the third is overall how well the film worked. Now this includes the experience you had watching it, or the impact it still has on you, the rewatchability factor. Now one thing to note, I always say this disclaimer, whenever you make a list, it's personal. What I think personally about this film, what it made me feel, I've rated them according to that, and it may be different for you. So you may or may not agree with my list, and that's totally fine. You can always let me know your list in the comments below, and if you can rate them in these 3 categories, that'd be amazing. Now another thing to note is that I didn't keep any of the superhero films in the list, nor animated films, because I think the criteria becomes very different in those. And I only included all out action films which we got this year. And of course these are only the ones I watched. So let's begin with the list. At number 10 is the Malayalam film RDX. I know already a lot of people disagree with that. In action, I've given the film 7. It had really cool action sequences, shot really well. The martial arts was so well done, very well executed. The camera work was really good. But one thing I didn't enjoy was the editing. Because a lot of moments I wanted to feel the impact of the punches, but it would cut out just before that. And also the film has a lot of action sequences and some doesn't have the same impact than the other. Now in story also I've given it 7. The way the action flows in the film is well done. Why it's happening is very well justified. But the climax portion I felt was a bit tacky. Overall, I gave the film a 4 out of 10 because honestly, just before recording this video, it hit my mind, oh, RDX is also there. I had not even written it down. I had forgotten about the movie. And even now, not many scenes pop up in my mind. I don't think I will rewatch the film. I do remember I had a good time watching the film, but it didn't leave any lasting impact. And thus the total is 18. Number 9 is Animal, and yes, it is an action film. In action, I've given it a 5. I think there are good moments, well choreographed action. Like the interval block has stages in the action, so that's well planned. But I felt they were a little overdrawn. It just went on for too long. And I even enjoyed the climax fight. It was well executed, but nothing spectacular. In story, I've given it a 7 because I think the action really works well with what the story is trying to do. It's able to drive why this character is going to such lengths to do this action. Some of it does feel overkill. And overall, as an experience, I've given it 7. That takes the total to 19. And I feel easily this year will be remembered for Animal. With so much happening around, there's some really good moments in the film that stayed back with you, especially in action and the way they use the adult rating. Number 8 is the Hollywood boxing film Creed 3. In action, I've given it an 8, and I think it's well done throughout the film. Some of the best boxing you'll see in a film. Where it really stood out for me was the anime inspired moments, and that brings to story where I've given it a 9 because the story is wonderful. The way they build up these two characters and the conflict between them is so well done. You feel the hatred, you feel each punch, and it feels personal. So action is very well justified. And overall, I've given it a 3 because I don't think I'll ever watch it again. I've definitely seen more emotional and impactful boxing films, so it doesn't really have that high recall value. Number 7 is a shocker. It's gonna create chaos in the comments. And it is John Wick 4.
क्या बोला तूने?
कुछ भी
कोई सेंस बात
क्या कर रहे है यार तू?
कुछ भी
मजाक है क्या?
खत्म, बाय बाय, टाटा, गुड बाय, गया.
Now if you're new to the channel, if you don't know, you have not seen my John Wick video, I was not a pretty big fan of it. But okay, let's come to it. First, in action, I've given it a 10. I think one of the only films I've given 10. Maybe there's one more coming. The action of the film is spectacular, one of the best. I still remember one of the action where the camera goes like top and we're just following John Wick killing everyone, and every time he shoots someone it's a sparkle. Outstanding. I loved it. I still like one of the best action scenes I've ever seen. And throughout the film, action wise, there's no competition to this film. And John Wick films just create a benchmark for what good action is. Now coming to the story, I gave it a 5 because I felt apart from the beginning of the film, the whole film just felt like a repetition of the third film. There's nothing new, there's nothing different. The start of the film is really promising, but where the film just goes, it meanders. I was not a big fan of it. And that's why the action doesn't feel that organic. It feels like, yeah, John Wick is about just action, so we'll just keep having action, that's it. And overall, as a whole, I gave it a 5. Again, I don't think I'll ever watch it again. The film just didn't do enough for me to be excited about this world and this character anymore. Number 6 is Prashant Neel's Salar Part 1, Ceasefire. In action, I've given the film a 6. In my review, I said action is a weak part of the film, but it's the action choreography. But the set pieces, the editing, the way music is used is well done. Story wise, I've given it an 8 because, story really demands that action to happen and it takes its time. It's not, forced every 5 minutes there has to be an action. It's drawn out. The stakes are raised. You have to wait for it. You have to earn the action. So the way it's used throughout the film, it's well done. And overall, I've given the film a 7. I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed the moments it creates, especially with the action. One of a standout scene was an action moment. Now the total of this film is 21, and actually the next film has the same score, but that is rated higher. I'll tell you why. Number 5 is Leo, which is part of LCU. So what I've done in case of tie is that the film which has a higher rating in action will be rated higher than the other. Now in Salar, the action rating is 6, and in Leo, in action, I rated it 8 because the action is superbly well designed. Be it the first Haina scene, be it the cafe scene, even the scenes I was not a big fan of, the action was well done. There were some bits, which went a little too over the top for me. Now story wise, I've given it a 8 because the way action flows through the story is well done. Again, action is not just happening for the sake of it. The narrative is demanding it, and the film builds upon it really well. Now overall, I gave it a 5. As I said in my review also, that second half, especially that flashback, just takes the film down overall. Yes, it has amazing action moments, but every time someone says Leo, I'll always think about the flashback. And that's sad. Now number 4 is the Netflix action film Extraction 2. In action, I've given it a 9 and it deserves it. Like the film franchise is made on action. How can you just raise it? How long can you take a single shot with the action going on? I think it's just outstanding throughout. The way they have matched the ambition with the execution is praiseworthy. It could have been a 10, but there were some moments in the climax where it loses its steam. Now in story, I've given it a 7. I think story wise it all makes sense. I think it felt more personal than the first one. The way they tried to build the villain was really good, but yeah, it again came to the climax which was underwhelming. And overall, I gave it a 5. I would say a one-time watch, and I like this one better than the first film. Again, the total of this film is 21, but in action it got a 9, so it was higher in list. Now we're in the top 3, and number 3 is Jawan. I know already many people disagree, but hear me out. In action, I've given it a solid 8. I feel the way action was designed throughout, the way it was executed was very well done. Yes, it was over the top, it was very stylistic, but it was consistent throughout, which I really enjoyed. In story, I've given it a 6. Narrative wise, it is quite simplistic. Yes, it is, jumping, it's non-linear, a lot of things are happening, but it doesn't have a very natural flow. It feels like, movement is happening when this scene, this scene, this scene. It's like different chunks. Overall, I've given it an 8, again because, the way everything came together. As a whole, the film really works well. I've already rewatched the film twice, and I think it's the climax portion where it takes a dip, but overall, there are scenes to go back to. There are some really solid moments it creates, and the Shah Rukh magic and how it has risen above, to make a message, make a point. Now it's gonna get exciting. Number 2 is Mission Impossible 7 or Dead Reckoning Part 1, whatever you want to call it. We got Tom Cruise back doing real action on screen, and in action, I've given it a 10, man. Like, come on. He's doing the best action, the most wildest action in real life, and when you see it on screen, it just gives you a different high altogether. Technically, the film was flawless. Now in story, I've given the film an 8. One thing I definitely enjoy in all the Mission Impossible films is that the way the action is built up, the way it flows in the narrative. Every mission feels impossible, but yet our hero makes it happen. While struggling, it's not, very easy. It really feels impossible, but he makes it happen. And throughout the film, all the action, all the chase movements, everything feels very organic. Now Now overall, I've given it a 4 because I've already forgotten some of the plot. I was just other day talking about this film with my friend and I was like, I've already forgot half the plot. I do remember they did injustice to a character and an actor I really adore. And that one action moment they have been building up, the making we saw 8 minute long, him jumping off that hill and everything, and just happens within 30 or 1 minute in the film. That's it. So that was kind of underwhelming. I may have to rewatch this film because the other part comes out, but yeah, a one-time watch. And now it's time for number 1 spot. This even I got surprised because I just rated every film, just gave it point, just thinking about that film, and I did the total later. And while doing the total, I realized, oh, the ranking is different. And then what came number 1, I was really surprised. And I think you will be too. And it is the Tamil film Maaveeran. So how did this happen? In action, I've given it a solid 9 because the way the action is designed, it's one of the best in Indian cinema. It is so organic, it is so well done, it is so different because you have a hero character who's not fighting. He doesn't want to, but he's ending up beating everyone around him. So the way that is designed, the way that plays in the climax battle also, where he's going against what he's being told, the way it edited, so well done. In story, I've given it a 8. Just the concept of it, the way it's executed just elevates it. All the action movements felt so organic. It is not a superhero film, but does a better job at being a superhero film. Now the last moment in the film, the building falling is, was ambitious, but the execution was not up to the mark. But otherwise the story worked really well. And overall, I've given the film a solid 8. It is easily one of my favorite films because of so many reasons. It's trying something totally different, not following, what has already been done, bringing a fresh and new approach to this genre. It is not a superhero film. Again, it is not. But it still manages to give you that same feeling, that same lessons which you get. So that was my top 10 list. Now some films that didn't make the list. I'll start from the bottom. Adipurush with a rating of 4. Bhola with a rating of 10. Gadar 2 with the rating of 11, Dasara with the rating of 12, Fast X with the rating of 13, Ponniyin Selvan 2 with a rating of 14. This movie didn't have that many action sequences, but it had 2-3, so I included it in the list. Then Jailer with 14, Pathan with 15, and Tiger 3 with 16. If I missed out some films, I've either not seen them or they didn't make my list. So that was my list, and here you can check out my list of the best films of 2023 overall. If it's not up yet, it will be soon. What do you think about this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm pretty sure many will disagree with my list, but you can always share your list with me. It was a good year for action films, and let's hope for better next year. See you next time.